Okay, let's prepare everything.
But you want to do...
There is video, but there is a video. Zero. Hi guys, welcome back to another stream of It's a DARMAR. Today I have an amazing guest and his name is Alessandro. He's a lead character artist in NVIDIA, and finally we managed to organize this after you waiting for 1 month because I had some problems with my connection, but now we are ready. Hi Alessandro, how are you?
Hello. Hi, Dark. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm really happy that I finally have you on this stream because
Oh, yeah, my
y-
pleasure.
you're such a talented artist. I've been following your work for a
Thank you.
very long time and I've been
Hi,
enjoying
guys.
it a lot. Like, there is such a variety in it, there is such a style in it. I know you're Italian, we just talked about that, and that you're from Milano, where I studied before.
Yes,
And
that's exactly. I was born and raised in Milano, yeah.
yeah, and I think that Milanese people have a certain style to their art. For me, as Italians and especially Milanese, because of all the art that surrounds them. And I think that your art, a lot of times when I'm looking at it, how you polish the surfaces, they look for me super polished, like it's a car design. Am I wrong
Oh,
about that, or it's just the influence from Italian culture?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I mean, like, there is a lot of like characteristic of people from Milano, but I'm not sure that really like reflects into the computer graphic. I don't know. It just like I think it's just a consequence of my path through computer graphic to polish stuff to a certain level. I like it, and it served me well so far. It depends on the project, to be honest, but I'm not sure it's really like connected I'm to not my
Mm.
sure
Mm.
about past that. To my past in Italy. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't characterize it like that, but I'm glad that you find some.
You
You
know,
know.
the surfaces are super polished, and I don't see that very often with artists, especially in character art. I'm very honest now, and your surfaces are super polished, and that's what appeals to me because I'm looking at the moment at your not the Deadpool. What's the name of the from the Batman? The guy that doesn't have one eye. That John Mangalo is.
No, I understand what you mean.
My
I
my my.
think
Yeah.
I believe it comes from the fact that for most of my career, I've been a production artist. So when you work in production, which means that what you do is basically like the final product of what people see, which can be like,
Because
a
I'm looking at the
cinematic
moment
or
at
a
your
video game or 3D
Deadpool.
print.
What's the
You need to polish things like properly. It's not exactly like doing concept art. Concept art can be amazing, but it's not as the same thing as like doing something for the final output. So when you are in that position as being a production artist, yes, you are required to polish like things a lot because that's the final, obviously, like stage of the whole like product. So it's mostly for me a consequence of that, and sometimes I get loose when it comes like to personal work because obviously I know that people, they're not gonna scrutinize um, that thing like in such detail. If I do a sample still, I don't really like polish like surfaces too much, even if they look polished. If to a close examination, the shaders are not that accurate. I don't do like turnarounds, in example, to test the shaders like more accurately. But yeah, as a production artist, that's probably like a consequence of that. I mean, people wants you to be that accurate, that polished when it comes to 3D models for cinematics, films, or commercials, or that thing, or 3D prints.
I
Yeah.
see. I see.
And,
But
I, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing that, but sometimes it's like it's very time consuming. I like to do personal work, and when it comes to personal work, I don't want to follow that attitude, because it's counterproductive. You really lose a lot of time, to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's always fascinating to me when somebody's working in 3D. I have also the same problem. When I'm working in 3D, some things take a lot of time. And I always try to cut down that process. Like, I think every person that is an artist likes to do that, because it can be time consuming. Your brain starts working too much and you get tired from it. And you're always trying, I suppose, to cut that corners a little bit.
Yes, because you're anxious to see the final result, right? Without going through the the pain of, like, the technicalities. That's what's really, like, it's time consuming. It's like mentally challenging, and sometimes it's frustrating too, because you don't want to fight with the software to get something that is artistic, right?
True. I agree. You need to, as somebody told me, you need to master the software, so it's not anymore a software, but it is just a tool that it's an extension of you,
Yeah. I mean, we are getting there. Like, definitely, software are getting better and better. And honestly, like, what is doable today was unthinkable even like 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we are getting there, but still, there is still like a lot of, like, technicalities involved. It's not so, like, straight away, just like taking a pencil and draw on the paper, and that's one of the, like, misconception of people when outside of the CG world look at our profession and see, like, oh man, it's so easy for you. And obviously it's not that easy. I mean, it's easy after we have been doing it for like decades, but it's not that obvious.
Yeah. It definitely takes time. Have you been experimenting with some new 3D stuff, or what is your software that you use? What are the tools that you use? I want to hear a little bit about that, and I'm sure that the guests would like to know.
It's nothing like that connect with, like, the modern trends, as like using Oculus or Gravity Sketch. It's just like traditional tools. Like, I still use, an example, I started using 3D Studio Max as my main software, just because, like, almost like in two decades ago, in 2000, it was just very popular, and that became my main software. But then throughout my career, I started using Maya as well. Well, not for modeling, but because, like, companies were needing it. And then I use, of course, like ZBrush, and then I use Substance Painter a lot. I know how to use Mari. I use Marvelous Designer. That's pretty much it. If we don't count, like, Photoshop, of course, like, I use Keyshot as well, sometimes for presentation. These days I'm playing with Blender. I'm really fascinated with what Blender can do, but I don't really have the time to stop whatever I'm doing, like, and just focus on, okay, I want to translate my skills from 3D Studio Max when it comes to modeling, an example, to Blender, like, one-to-one. I don't really have the time to do it these days. I just want to, but I can't because I have to work. So yeah, just like standard tool that everybody films or commercial just use, And there are levels of, like, proficiencies when it comes to that. I'm mostly skilled in 3D Studio Max and ZBrush, and I would say Substance Painter at this point. And that's it.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of software,
But because character modelers these days, unless you stay in the realm of just let's say concepting, if you are in production, you need to use these softwares. I mean, there's no way to go around it. It's just what the industry needs. You can say, oh, I can model in Max, but if you go to work in a studio, chances are that they use Maya. So you need a certain level of proficiency. When you can do some stuff in other softwares. Yeah. I don't even know if anybody these days use Madbox. I mean, extensively. But yeah, ZBrush is a must these days.
ZBrush is a fascinating tool. When it came out, when I saw it, for me, it was something totally unreal. Something like a VR now, when it came out like 15 years ago or something like that. And for me, that was like a magic back then. Since I know I watched...
it's still magic.
Yeah. And when I was watching your interview with Blender Guru. And
Oh yeah,
I was watching, and I know that you use 3D Max, as you said now, and everything. And I was thinking how before we needed to model everything in polygons, you know, but not in a polygons like in a clay way, but you needed, even when you were doing character, I suppose when you started, you needed to do it in polygons, like
yeah,
real
polygon,
polygons. Yeah, yeah.
polygons by polygon, polygon by polygon. Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's the way it was. I mean, but yeah, to be fair, even these days, at least if you work in production, the amount of like poly modeling that you do is quite extensive. People will be surprised to hear this, but maybe. But you know, it's not that you start in zebras from a sphere. No, you don't do that. I mean, you can in some circumstances, but you really need, even these days, a good amount of skills when it comes to poly modeling, just to problem solving. Let's put it this way. I mean, you don't poly model extensively as you used to unless you do art surface, but you need the skill. You know, it's not completely gone. It's just there in a side, but you need to have like a good amount of like poly modeling skills, at least if you do a job like mine.
I see. I didn't know that. I mean, there is still poly modeling, that's for sure, but I didn't know that it was used like that. But what I want to ask.
Yes, because you deal a lot, for example, with topology. You deal a lot with like, you know, hard edges and all this stuff. So you need a lot of accuracy. Let's put it this way. So unless you do only like organic stuff, even there, sometimes there are like cases where you need to get into the topology, tweak the topology, because you deal with riggers, you deal with like all sort of like technical problems. So you need to be able to, you know, to let's say like to tweak the vertices and edge flow and everything the way you want. And tools like Z modelers, I mean, you can do some of it, but sometimes they're limited. So you need to know one specific application. It can be Blender, it can be Max, it can be Maya, where you can actually jump in and tweak the topology. And you need skills when it comes to that. You need like technical knowledge how to polymodel, basically.
Yeah.
You know. So even if you don't do everything in polymodel, you need the knowledge. Let's put it this way. You know.
For me, it's always fascinating to see because I did a little bit character design and I played with that, and character animation. That was 10 years ago. But I always remember how you need to create loops so the animation can work, you know, and how different they are from anything. You can model hard surface, it doesn't move like a face or anything, or an arm character. And it was always fascinating. Now the thing that you're talking about, you need to have a really good technical knowledge how to make it. There is that part of the 3D. There is art.
Well, sometimes let's say you have a sculpting of a body or a face or whatever, and then you send it to the riggers, and they're like, can you spread out, like an example, the loops around the eyes and all this stuff. This can be something relatively easy to do, but to do it in a clean way, well, you need to be careful. You need to have like proper tools. You need to have some sort of like technical knowledge to do it properly and to do it clean. Let's put it this way, because to do it just for doing it, I mean, there are very sloppy ways, you know. But then when it comes to accuracy, yes, you need to know the tools. You need to talk to people that have already done that. So let's put it this way: the sculpting these days, it's way easier than it used to be, just because you have tools like ZBrush. But the technical problems, I went to the university and studied math over there. So like pure math, you know, to be a mathematician or to teach math or whatever. And this is basically my background. So it's completely technical, you know. But then like life is how do you say, like unpredictable sometimes. When I came back from the military service, and I don't know, I was not motivated to keep studying math at the time. And I just found a job. I just gave up on the university. I found a job in a company that was making like technical, electric communication systems. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
And I was using AutoCAD at that time. You know, Autodesk AutoCAD. I was just like putting, symbols and stuff on like blueprints. Let's put it this way. It's just like very, very simple job. And that's where I got in contact with the 3D Studio Max, because a coworker gave me a copy of that and say, hey, why don't you try this just for fun, you know? And that's that's how basically I started like as a self learner, and then it became a passion more and more. I mean, I'm talking about like 1996. That's the time. That's the time when I started playing with 3D Studio Max, and there was nothing around in terms of like tutorials, resources. I mean, that time was basically like the dawn of internet, almost internet as we know it today. You know.
Yeah.
So there was nothing around. I mean, there was like some scarce tutorials or people using splines and nerves, and it was a it was a mess. So
nerves,
whatever
I remember nerves very good. I remember and hate them.
Like, at that time, I was playing even with Rhino, and to me, it was like amazing, you know. And whatever you were doing at the time was incredible. At least for you, it was just like, oh my god, look, I've done a pen, I've done like an ashtray, and you were so happy about it. That's how I started, basically just playing. And to me, CG was just intoxicating at the time, you know, because everything you were doing was an achievement. Because nobody else they were doing it at the time except like a very, very tiny community of people, you know. But they were not even forums. This was even pre-CG Talk or CG Society, that's what it's called now, you know. That's how I started as a self-learner. My artistic skill was basically like frozen. I can't say I can't draw an example. I can't. I mean, I draw like a 15 years kid. Let's put it this way. You know, I don't have artistic skills when it comes to that. No traditional artistic skills because I didn't attend any schools. I never practiced that. So I started with digital, and I kept doing digital all through these years. And I don't know. Somehow I learned a craft. Let's put it this way. But I don't have a formal artistic training. All you see in my portfolio is the result of just like practicing with like digital for years, learning something, throwing away some like, you know, workflow that didn't work for me. But no, I don't really have like any formal artistic training. You know, that's one of my biggest regrets, because I don't know. I wonder if I could have taken like a lot of like shortcuts, an example, and if I could be a better artist today, or at least like doing something different than what I'm doing now. Maybe something more related to concept art rather than production art, you know?
Yeah.
Because even if I understand a lot of concepts when it comes to art, I still struggle, you know? I still struggle with a lot of things. I need references. I need guidance sometime, you know? I'm good at some stuff, but I lack stuff in other fields. That's probably true for everybody.
Everybody likes something. I mean, I can tell you from your art that your art is amazing. You can always be a better artist, but I don't think that education would improve it quite a lot, because you got infected by art, and that's, I think, the purest form of learning it. You don't have to go to school or anything. Your art is speaking already about itself, how good it is. I'm showing the Batman at the moment, and it's amazing.
True. It's very true what you're saying. I mean, at the core, I mean, the school is relative, but you need to be passionate what you're doing, because throughout these like years that I've been doing computer graphic, I met a lot of people that probably they approach computer graphic for the wrong reasons, because they were like, oh, okay, you know, I want a stable job, I want to work on this, like I want to have a credit in the movie, and it's never been like that for me. I mean, because first of all, there was no chance when I started to even think about working in video games or not even consider films. There was no chance. I mean, you didn't think it that way. It was just like, okay, I just want to do something that looks cool on my screen. That's it. You know, I have an object. I want to replicate that object, and it was the end of it. Or, you know, I want to do a character from a comic. You know, but that was it. You know, it was just like doing computer graphic for the sake of it, for the joy of seeing something in front of your screen. You know, so there was no thinking of, oh, I want to make a career. I want to make money out of it. There was no schools, of course. It was a different era. So passion was the main drive. And that's what I always recommend. I mean, if you don't like it, if you struggle, if you think like, oh man, it's going to take like so much time to do this. Yeah, it takes time. But if you like it, you lose the perception of time. That's what I'm saying, because inevitably, if you start working in this industry, you're gonna do so much overtime. And if you hate the idea of like staying in front of the computer and doing these things, well, probably it's not the job for you. But if you like what you're doing, probably, at least in the beginning, you will lose track of time and it will be much more bearable because you like it. And that will always be my case. And, of course, like when you get older, you're like, well, I need a balance, and that's fair. But at least in the beginning, you should step aside from like, what kind of career can I have? The question that you have to ask yourself is like, do I like what I'm doing? Do I lose myself? Is it a job that can actually be my hobby as well? Maybe that's what you need to think of it, in terms of the way you approach this like profession,
Yeah, true, absolutely true.
And honestly, when I look around me, the most successful quote unquote, in my industry, are the people that they were always passionate about it since the beginning. They were never thinking about, how much money I'm going to make, because it's not a career that makes you money. Let's be honest. Like those are other jobs like bankers, lawyers, or whatever. But computer graphic, I don't think it's going to make you that rich. So you better like what you're doing just because it's fun, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, but it can give you a really comfortable life. I mean, it's stressful.
Yeah. No. Yes, of course. Much better than other jobs.
True.
But you don't have to think about it like, how much money can I make, where you don't have any skills, or where you never even try to do it.
True. Absolutely true. Because many people enter for the wrong reasons. I mean, everybody enters one way or another, but then the question is how you're going to proceed from there. As you said, passion is number one. Absolutely, passion is number one, because this job can eat your soul out. And when that happens, the only thing that can keep you alive is love for it. And I know many people. I met many students during my visit when I was visiting festivals and stuff like that, and many of them were always asking, how do I become a better artist? Well, you sit down on the chair, warm it up, and you sit down most of your life and you learn. And now you know that the coronavirus has started and everything, we are having that problem. And now that same people are asking, what do I do? Well, you sit down and you learn 3D. This is the perfect moment for that, So the passion is very important, and entering this industry for, let's not say it right reasons, but reasons that will keep you there.
No, that's very true. I absolutely agree on that. And you have to be prepared to spend a lot of time like by yourself, and we are in a time these days where actually you have all the resources in the world if you want to learn. You can go to school. Schools are great tools. Let's be honest. There was no school when I started, so a lot of questions for me in the beginning, they remain totally not answered. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And the only way to tackle that was to try and keep trying and keep trying. And when you do that, you lose time, of course.
Yeah.
But what you get in return is the fact that you're more resilient. You are like, you know what? I don't have time to ask people. I want to try to do it by myself. And only when it's the last resource, I'm going to ask somebody. And that develop a skills in you, which is like problem solving,
Yeah.
So you basically don't stop where you can do something on the first try, but you basically train your brain to be like, okay, let's see how can I fix this or find a way. And it's sad because I see a lot of people that at the minimal difficulty, they're just like, hey, how do you do this? And sometimes it's like something challenging, but sometimes it's like very easy, even if you just spend like maybe couple of hours trying to do it by yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are natural problem solvers. That's true. We need to problem solve all the time. Is it topology? Is it design? Is it functionality? But that's our main goal, as you say. We need to solve the problems. If you are always trying to lean on other people, you will not go far in this industry.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's you need to be adventurous. Let's call it like that. Even though you're sitting in front of monitor and computer 24/7, you need to be adventurous as a person and try to discover the new stuff that will make you rediscover again the new stuff and push you in some directions that you never thought you can go.
Yeah, because it's not guaranteed that, especially when you're working, you will have somebody that tells you how to do some stuff. Sometimes you're just by yourself and you have to figure out something because you have to deliver. So you need to have this kind of like proactivity when it comes to, okay, there's a problem, I need to find a workaround, whatever it is, but I can't just like stop everything and let's wait that somebody's gonna help me, you know.
True. Absolutely agree on. I have to ask you, because you are making a whole character and everything, what is the thing that you like the most to do on the character to create it? Is it modeling? Is it texturing? Is it what is the thing that you enjoy the most?
It's probably when you get close to the final stage, like rendering, texturing, rendering, and presentation. Because I'm always like, I mean, when I start something, I always envision somehow in my brain how it's gonna be, how I want it to look like. But in the beginning, it's very tedious because you need to go through a lot of like technical steps to do it, at least in production, you know. So it takes time because you see something that you're like, oh, okay, it's taking shape, starting to look good. So, you know, in the beginning, it's not that it's not enjoyable, but it's not as enjoyable when you get like, let's say, to texturing, where really like things start to come alive and all the previous work that you've done, even the technicalities now makes a lot of sense, you know. So it's definitely when texturing and shading, that's the part where that probably I enjoy the most these days, you know. Probably was not like that in the beginning of my career because, you know, texturing and shading, especially like 10 years ago, was not like as advanced as it is today. And even the tools were like very, very cumbersome sometimes, you know, especially when in the beginning I was only using Photoshop. There was no 3D painting tools. So you can imagine how painful it
and then
was.
painting in 2D and thinking about it, how it will look in 3D. I
Yeah,
remember that.
just imagine like the things like the seams, you know. It was a nightmare. It was way more technical than it is now, you know. And
yeah.
So in the beginning, like the beginning of my career, probably modeling was the most like, you know, fun thing to do. But now now there is a shifting. It's definitely like texturing and shading and compositing, presentation. That's more fun, definitely,
There
for
is a
me.
lot of rendering now. People are showing off their skills, and I remember when I started doing this in 2003. First, my contact with 3D, and I remember that rendering was chaos. It was chaos, literally. It was mathematics. You needed to understand caustics and everything, how they work, and to recalculate them.
I mean, you were placing lights, you were placing like the value of lights. These days, like people go from ZBrush to Keyshot, and that's it. I'm a master, master photographer or whatever. Like, you know, but back in the days, no. I mean, I went through the whole process of trying to understand how to set up an HDRI lighting, you know. And these days, people don't even like. It's not even a problem. You know?
I remember there was also rendering clay models. You needed to set up the domes, the light domes around it.
Light domes.
36, if I remember correctly, to get the perfect shadow. It was in mind. So that was quite fun. And then the Keyshot came out and destroyed everything.
And then basically like let a lot of people enter into this. It was the same for ZBrush, you know. Before in computer graphic, not necessarily only artists were working, just people that were fascinated, had the patience and the time to do polymodeling were approaching that thing. But with the introduction of ZBrush, a lot of like, you know, less patient people, a lot of like more maybe like art-oriented people went into the business, you know. So definitely ZBrush amplified the pool of people that actually do computer graphic, you know. Because these days, even illustrators, they use ZBrush and they don't know anything when it comes like to CG technicalities, but they still enjoy the software and, you know, and then they make a living. They make a living, you know.
You mentioned you were on CG Talk. Did you participate in any of the competitions that were happening there?
No, I don't think so. no CG Talk competition. Not that I remember. I will remember. I think no. I know those competition, but I never really had the time, because when I basically like start posting on CG Talk, I was already working, in Italy in a video game company. I didn't really have the time. I mean, I was always like following like everything, but I was fascinated, but I never really had the time to participate.
I remember that competitions, for me, that was my start of the career, and I will always remember them. And I remember two artists way back then from them when I was seeing stuff. There was a machine flash contest, and Fausto Di Martini.
Yeah.
Fausto Di
Oh
Martini.
yeah.
When I saw his work, I was like, what the hell? How did this man do this? And the second one was from Chris Costa. The second one.
Yes,
and
I remember. I remember the challenge. Actually, I remember that challenge. Yeah.
The second one was what was the name? The King and Apprentice, something like that. And I remember I was like, damn, these Brazilians are killing it. How good they are, because they are winning every competition. Back then, CG Society.
Yes, I remember that. I remember the time very well.
Yeah. Crazy times, like crazy times.
I mean, that time was the time when actually, I mean, I think ZBrush was there, but it was not extensively used as it is today. So it was.
I think I will make a podcast episode about that, about the previous competitions. I will go and dig a little bit, because I remember those topics. There was a whole process how they were doing it. It was modeled by quads, like, and everything. And I think that the people should see that. I think they will be fascinated as much as you and me with that. Like when we.
I would be totally amarcord,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not sure how like modern generation will look at that and what they will feel about it. But I mean, that time is gone. Honestly, those struggles, those like problematics, they're basically gone. It's just like interesting as to see like a museum piece,
Yeah.
to have some perspective. Yeah.
True, absolutely true, and I agree. So at the moment you are in USA, Los Angeles, and you're working as a lead character artist for NVIDIA.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit how did that happen? How did you arrive to USA, and how was the transition from Italy?
Basically in around like 2006, I was doing a lot of like personal work. So some of these were posted on like forums like 3D Total, CG Talk, and all the stuff that was there at the time. And some people at Blur Studio basically noticed my work. So they asked me if I was interested in freelancing for them, remotely.
Yeah.
And of course, I was like super excited about it and everything. And I started freelancing for Blur at the time. So it lasted for a while. It lasted for a couple of years, me freelancing from home. And at the time, I had a job. I had like a job in a video game company. So I was basically freelancing for Blur after hours. I was going home at like 5:30 p.m. and then I was like working at night for Blur Studio.
That's some dedication. That's some dedication,
It was fun. It was, it was a dream for me. You have to understand. I mean, it's just like a random dude from North Italy working for this like already famous at the time like American company. For me, which is like crazy intoxicating, So, and they were basically asking me to work on characters because I wasn't doing characters in the video game company. I was doing cars and tracks because it was a game company that was making racing games. But in my portfolio online, I had a lot of characters. So Blur was asking me to freelance on doing some characters. And it went pretty well. They were happy with my work. So after a couple of years, they asked me, hey, we have an open position in-house. Take it with a grain of salt, but we can try to do a working visa for you if everything goes well, and you would relocate here if you would be interested. And I take it very, very lightly because I don't know. I wasn't like picturing my life living outside Italy at the time. I was happy, but yeah, it was a huge opportunity just because of the things that I could have done full time, working for them. So I thought about it and I say, okay, yes, let's try. So they work with their lawyers and they ended up like getting me a O1 visa, which is basically a artist visa. It's the kind of visa that you can get even today. It lasts for like 3 years. I mean, as long as you work for the company, of course, you know.
Yeah.
And in 2007, I moved to basically here to Venice, to Los Angeles to work for Blur Studio. And I stayed with them for about 8 years and a half. It was an amazing experience. I mean, I can only talk about good things when it comes to the experience that I had with Blur. It was very formative. It was I made very good friends. It was a good time for the most part. Of course, it's like I guess every job is not, it's never perfect, you know. But if I look back, it was probably like my happiest time in this industry, just because I was super passionate. I was surrounded by great people, and when I say great people, I'm not talking about only when it comes to artistry, which was very high, but also like amazing human beings, you know. And then, as all things, you know, you just maybe you need at some point new things, maybe you need like different pace, new opportunities. And from Blur, after yeah, something like 8 years, 8 years and a half, I went to Riot Games. I stayed there, like working again on cinematics, whatever, for another 3 years until Riot basically had a big layoff. They basically laid off the entire department I was working with. So all of a sudden, I felt myself unemployed, you know. And I look around for opportunities again, and I found this thing at the Mill. The Mill is basically is a VFX house that is specialized in mostly commercials. I worked for them for about 1 year again. Yeah, working on commercial as well. The title over there was VFX modeler. That's the way it worked. So it was like 360-degree modeling. So it was not strictly only characters, you know. And then I got this opportunity because I had my friend Gabriel at NVIDIA. He asked me if I was interested in joining the team over there to do real-time content for, you know, demo, presentation, cinematics, and all sort of like inter-team products at NVIDIA. And I thought it was great because it was basically also offering to work remotely, because NVIDIA is based in Santa Clara, but he said, well, you know, there's also this opportunity that if you want, you can work from home, because that's one of the characteristics of NVIDIA, that there's a lot of people actually work from home, you know. Remote work is totally encouraged when it's like possible and when the nature of your job allows you. So for me, it was like, oh my God, it's great, because actually I was kind of like tired of the office culture, you know. I was really tired of after like, I don't know, like 15 years of work and working, commuting, and I wanted to try that.
Time for a change. Time for a change.
Time for a change. And honestly, it was a great opportunity. It was great benefits because, you know, sometimes like when you work on visual effects and commercial, it can be the toll when it comes like to your personal life can be pretty high in terms of like working hours and everything. So honestly, like the job at NVIDIA was like very well balanced when it comes like to work and like and life. So yeah, so I accepted, and here I am, you know.
Yeah. You said that your career, you worked in a company in Italy that had designing car game. But
yeah, it's there. It's called Milestone, and they specialize in racing games. They do AAA games. You know, they did all the Superbike and MotoGP series, and they're still doing it. They're still going strong. You know.
Yeah.
They do games for like PC, PS4, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's based in Milan.
You know what's fascinating to me, and I wanted to ask you that you got your job because of your personal work, and
Yes.
Your personal work that you did after your working hours from 9 to 5, then you come home and you work on it. And what is the advice that you would give to students when it comes to that? Because many people, how did you continue being in a position to work on that kind of stuff and to feel the drive inside of you to work after the work? That's my question, because many students
Well,
want.
again, it comes to how much you like it. I mean, let's do. I mean, when it's much difficult now, it's obviously much difficult. But just because the bar is so high right now, you can't just go out with something and impress people. You need to spend time on it much more than it used to be. On the other side, learning is easier today. So it's like I can't really compare today when I started. But at the core, you need to like it. It needs to be somehow an important hobby for you. Let's put it this way. That's the only motivation that keeps you. Hey, I have this like day job, and then when I go home, I want to keep doing my personal work. And it's a big sacrifice sometimes because people have lives. People have like girlfriends, people have interest, people needs to go to the gym. But hey, you need to like it. There's not other way around it. And then you can maybe not be as prolific as other artists, but you need to put it in a certain space of your brain to be like, hey, this is my personal work. Maybe it's gonna take a month to be done, but I'm gonna finish it. Yes, please finish it. Because you know it's the only way to keep yourself alive as an artist. And I don't see any other way. Even these days, I slow down a lot my personal art, because let's face it, I'm getting older. So I don't have the same energy that I had before when I finish working my daily like 8 hours, and be like, okay, now I'm gonna work on my orc or whatever, or space marine.
Yeah.
I don't have the same energy. When I say energy, I really say like staying in front of the computer. My eyes are getting tired. I mean, I'm not like super old, but I feel the difference. I feel the difference. I'm like, no, I want to go on the couch and watch a movie.
Yeah.
I want to see that show that But when you are like 20 something, really like I mean, you have a lot of distraction, I know, but it should be your job. You should have a perception also of the quality that is required today, because let's be honest, when you go on ArtStation, you are blown away about the level of art that is up there, when it comes to everything: concept, character modeling, design. You can't just like slap something and pretend that it's going to be noticed. It needs to be amazing. It needs to look really, really good. And when I say look really good, these days, most of the time it comes to originality and polishing. These are mainly the two things. That's the only way to stand out these days. It needs to be polished. It needs to be well presented. And if these like two key ingredients are reached, most likely it's gonna be noticed. And then there is a matter of like continuity as well, because you can do like one great artwork, and if you don't do anything for the next like 3 months, well,
you will disappear off the grid. You will just disappear. Nobody will remember you. I mean, everybody.
Yeah. So it's sad to say, but these days there is also a component of like social media skills. Which is, back in the day it was much easier because there was not many people doing it, and where the only thing back in the day were like forums. So you post something on CG Talk, and what else? I don't know. 3D Total, they came later, but that was pretty much it.
Conceptart.org, and that's it.
Yeah, but you didn't really need like social media skills back in the days, or an understanding of how things get promoted, trends.
Yeah.
Whatever, these days, honestly, is like stressful when it comes to that. If you're already an established artist, you can be fairly confident that you have a following. You have some people already following you. But if you are an emerging artist, well, you need to see what other people are doing when it comes like to Instagram, or all the crap of like social media that is there.
It's like another job. It's like one more job.
It's another job that basically distracts you from making art. But let's be fair. If you're good, and if you're like prolific, and if you do a lot of artworks, there's no way you're not going to be noticed. It's really hard that if you post things online, they're good, people are not going to see it, and you're going to be rewarded somehow. But you need to do it. You can't sit on the couch and be like, oh, whatever, I'm going to do something in the next couple of months, because people post every day, and sometimes I'm amazed how some people are fast, and it's really tough today. It's really tough today to be noticed, to really emerge from the amount of people out there. It's
definitely not a sprint anymore. It's a marathon. You need to run a marathon to be smart, how to keep your energy up all the time, and how to move and everything. So that's how I see this industry now. It's quite hard to get noticed.
In that sense, you're probably way more best suited than me to give recommendation to young people, because you're super active. You have podcasts, you have all sort of social media things that to me are still mysterious in a way, and no, seriously.
It's a strange field, because there is art is not anymore just art. There is branding, there is marketing, there is social media, there is everything, and you need to if you are becoming an established artist now, it's much harder than I think 2015, when the social, even we have that algorithms and everything. Now the algorithms are making problems with that. A lot of new artists are making problem with that. I mean, the industry is definitely changing, and really fast, really fast, which is the strangest thing of it all, how fast it gets, faster and faster. Every year somebody says, well, it can get faster than this, and then the next year.
But also the interesting thing is how many differentiation there are these days in the industry. Like when I started, the goal was basically to get a job in the industry.
Yeah.
But this day there are people that make a living just by teaching, just by and sometimes I don't want to say names, but I'm like, what kind of experience do you actually have in the industry to actually teach something? I mean, I don't want to argue on the quality of what they teach, because sometimes it's valuable. I have to be honest, it's valuable. But sometimes you see people that you're like, well, you are basically saying this and that in the industry, but I wonder, have you ever worked in production? It's just, but it's interesting. As long as you make a living, I don't want to be the person that actually points my finger. I'm just saying there is a lot of different ways today to make a living in this industry, even as a social influencer, or people like me that work in production and they see the social media thing as a side thing. But I totally understand if people just want to do that, because there is a market for that,
Yeah, the market is getting bigger, which makes many new positions open and many new ways, as you said, to earn the money in this industry. There is lecturing, there is festivals, there is
influencers, whatever,
Yeah, there is different. But I need to tell you one comment when you are saying this. Milivoje Popovic posted, he said, Alessandro is an institution.
Okay.
And I agree with him. Your work is definitely there on the map as an institution. And
thank you. Who said that?
Milivoje Popovic, the Croatian. Okay. He is my friend.
Thanks, Popovic.
He is my friend. He's a really good artist. He's from Croatia, and he follows your work a lot.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, the industry is growing, and new opportunities. That's what happens every time when something is growing. New opportunities arise. Question is how you're gonna approach them. That's the biggest question always. And I think, as you said before, the point was to get the job. Today, points are numerous. And many people are getting lost because what is the point? That's the question. The job, the clients, the influencer life. I don't know. So that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, I can only answer for my part. I mean, to me, I always been an employee of somebody. I did freelance on the side, but never as a main source of income. And I can only imagine how wild it can be these days, because there is so much competition. There is, I don't know. I mean, so maybe even these days, the safer way to go is for you to get a job. I don't know. Maybe what do you think about it?
I don't know, to be honest, because I was never in-house. I was a car designer in Italy. That's the only in-house I was at. And I don't know, for me, I had a, to be honest, I had a goal in my mind what I wanted. It wasn't only getting a job. I wanted to build a brand, DARMAR. I wanted to be a little bit influencer. I wanted to develop myself in different fields. So that was my goal from 4 years ago, and I think that I managed to do some of them. But I don't know. There are so many possibilities. I always say to people, main thing is to discover what they want. After that, everything starts going much easier because the man. I always say that sentence because somebody very smart told me, the man that knows where he is going, nothing can stop him because he knows where he is walking to.
Okay, so you think that like the freelancer, like, working outside like the industry position is kind of like sustainable in the long run?
For me, it has been sustainable for 3 years almost. I've been working as a freelancer and it has been going really, really good. And each year it has been getting better. But I will be honest, when we are speaking now, I have a podcast, I have a big social media presence, I have design, I have everything. And I'm putting a lot of effort. My days don't consist from 9 to 5. My days consist from 9 to 10 every day. And I've been putting my social life on standby for quite some time. So I don't know, is it good for everybody? Because there is a lot.
Right. And I don't think that everybody could do that. Otherwise, that we would have like, an
Yeah.
industry of.
Yeah, true. I know when people are talking with me, they tell me I'm insane because I'm doing all of that. But that was my dream. So I figured out early, let's say early, I'm 32 now. So I figured out early what I want to do and when I want to do it. So for me, it has been sustainable. I'm not saying I don't have bad days. I have quite bad days when I'm exhausted and I'm like, I want to just have a beer with some my friends, but I can't because I have to work and I'm exhausted. So those days can be bad for me.
Right.
But there is a lot of positive also stuff happening.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, that's mostly what my freelance people around me tells me. I just sometimes it's just hard because it really depends like where you live to.
Yeah.
Because in a city like here, like in LA, like the cost of living is like it's very high. And when it comes to freelancing these days, in a globalized world, basically you compete with people from all over the world, and the rate sometimes is like way lower than what you would charge here in LA. So this is one of the main struggles of like freelancers here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I can imagine. I always say to people, it's insane. I've never been to LA, but I heard the costs and everything of living. That's insane. But then again, I think industry is in LA, so everything's happening there. Somehow I have a feeling that it's easier to get a job there than from here. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm not one to judge about that.
That's correct. If you want like an employee job in the computer graphic industry, LA is still pretty good. There is a good demand. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely correct what you're saying.
Yeah, true, but I mean costs are insane there. So, but yeah, now when we are having this coronavirus, I think that one thing is happening. Economy is changing a lot. Uh, that there is a lot of freelance for everybody. I mean, there is a lot. But I think after these situations, the doors will open even more because people will finally realize that they can lead the companies without even bringing workers to the job.
Yeah, yeah. I
What do you,
mean,
what do you
definitely,
think about that?
definitely. Well, it's definitely somehow like testing the model of like working from home for the people that in the computer graphic industry can do that. I know a lot of friends that they work in very established video game companies here, and most of these companies, if not all of them, they basically somehow enforce the model where the employees work from home. It's probably like still early to say how long this is sustainable, um, but it's definitely doable in the meantime, and only time will tell if this is like working or not, or if this is gonna like definitely be encouraged more and more. Uh, but in my personal experience, at least for a certain category of people that, in example like me, make assets, it's definitely doable. There is no real like obstacle that stops you from having like a living working from home in the computer graphic industry if you do what I do. I mean, you talk to people with like Skype or Slack or whatever, and maybe communication is a little bit slower, but it's not completely like stopping you at all, you know. And I'm surprised how well it works actually, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But there is always, you know, still that trust issue. You know, I don't know the guy, he can trick me. I don't know the company, they can trick me. It's totally different than from a handshake, for me at least.
Sure. Well,
Handsh-
yes. I'm talking about employees. You know,
yeah,
employees they sign like super strict contracts in the beginning. You know, and honestly, like even freelancers these days, they sign all sort of like NDA. Yes, of course, there are security problems, but I mean these problems are there anywhere, even if you work at the company. I mean, if you really want to do damage, there
yeah,
are ways. You know, you
of
need to be in
course.
that like fucked up mindset to ruin yourself, your career, and a company with like leaking informations. But generally speaking, I don't recall like very tragic episodes of like security breach in the past like 5 years. You know, people are
Yeah.
responsible. You know, generally speaking. You know?
Of course, of course. I mean, there is always that situation when the company tricks somebody, but from my experience, big companies never trick you. That's my
No,
experience so
no,
far.
because they have everything to lose. They have way more to lose than you will lose. You know what I mean?
True, true. And NDAs are getting bigger. I can say that the last one that I signed had like 44 pages and 43 pages, and I was like reading through it all because I always read everything, and I was like, man, it takes me 3 days to read through this. Like, so yeah,
Yeah,
it's changing.
imagine that.
Yeah, it's definitely changing, but I don't know. We will see. Industry still needs to change a little bit, and I think in next 3 years it will be changing even more and moving not just in art way. There is VR, there is new different 3D stuff, but also in a working area how it's gonna function. So we'll see about that where it goes.
Yeah, I believe that too. Definitely, yes. You're gonna see some radical changes in the next few years, you know. And sometimes it's like I don't know, like scary and concerning, like especially like let's face it, these days doing characters have never been that easy. And by easy, I mean that you have like tools, libraries, all
Kid
sort of
Bash.
like yeah, exactly. You know, so a lot of people actually approach my profession than ever before, and somehow you feel like, well, what about like job security? Am I gonna be relevant as an artist with my skill set as it is now in like 5 years from now? And the answer is like, well, I don't know. It's very ambiguous. Like when I started back in the days, you need to have some skills, an example, to sculpt faces. But these days, the trend is just use a scanner, you know, and then you polish the scans, and then you have like texturing, XYZ maps that helps you with the surfacing. So it's definitely like getting like easier and easier, and I don't know. I'm not saying that you as an artist will be in a position where you're gonna be like totally replaceable some days, but definitely some jobs will have like a shift. So even the schedule will be like much different, because if you have a library to assemble a character, you're not gonna charge anymore like 20 days to do a character, but maybe it's gonna be like 10 days, because people they're gonna give you, hey, use this library, use this, use that, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if jobs like mine, in terms of like production artists, will be, heavily impacted by this, to the point where, people are going to be like, well, we don't need like specialized character modelers, because we just can use a generalist, which is going to use like a kit bash, and that will do the job for us, you know. So you need to keep like somehow developing new skills, which can be also like concepting maybe, but you can't just be inert, because the industry will change around you and you're going to be obsolete, if you just like stay stuck in on your skill set. That's why you need to look around, use new software when you can, or maybe develop new skills.
I see a lot of like people in my field that somehow they try at least like to do the transition from modeling to be a production artist to do concepting, just because it's valuable and because production art as a skill is becoming more and more automatized in a way, you know. So yeah, definitely like technology is a good thing, but it's also like scary when it comes like to job security sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it's true. But as you said, you need to upgrade all the time. I mean, that's the only way to go because I don't think they can quit the jobs just like that, remove them from the map. But I think they
No,
will
no,
be
no.
upgrade. I think they will be upgraded. Like you need to know this and this because, like 15 years ago, you only needed to know to model something, and you were doing only modeling. Now you need to texture model, unwrap everything.
Yeah,
So
an example. I'll make you a simple example. Like back in the days, like let's say you have a character, you have pants, you have like a T-shirt, whatever. So you jump in and you sculpt that thing in ZBrush. Then with the introduction of like Marvelous Designer, I mean, there was some like initial technicality that you need to overcome to do good results, but Marvelous Designer is slowly becoming the standard, even in character modeling, when it comes to a certain look and a certain presentation when it comes like to clothing and and this kind of stuff. So these days you can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna just jump in and sculpt some pants. Well, if you do that, they better look like as realistic as Marvel's
yeah,
designer.
yeah,
Otherwise, people will notice the difference, and next time they're gonna be like, "Well, we're gonna give you some notes, and you know, you're gonna
true.
struggle basically." But back in the days, we were not struggling because the software was not there. But these days, since the software is there, it's gonna be the industry standard when it comes to that.
True.
So you better learn it, you know.
True.
And probably, I mean, I don't do much of like hard surface, but it's the same thing when it comes to that. This thing these days, probably when it comes to art surfacing, people expect to see, even when it comes to the look of like some design, a certain level of like polishing or a certain level of like complexity that it was not imaginable, you know, 5 years ago before Fusion was introduced or before ZBrush or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Everything's changing. Every year it's changing now. Before it was every 5 years, now every year. Same like, yeah, yeah, true. I agree. I wanted to ask you one more question, and I think we can finish 1 hour.
Yep.
Do you have any advice that you would give to students or to young yourself when you were starting out?
Yeah. Um, I would I would probably let's say just pick something that you really like and go for it. Maybe can I mean because these days like the industry is very diversified. You have like fields, you have rigging, you have like modeling, you have like compositing. So instead of like spreading your energies throughout like different skill set, just pick something that you really like and just go 100% on it. Because the industry is very selective these days. Nobody, I mean, unless everything which that you do is really amazing, and probably is not the case when you are in the beginning of your career, people in the industry really prefers to see something something like maybe like localized but very highly polished. There are a bunch of like different things when it comes like to lighting, texturing, modeling, but nothing really stands the bar that is there today. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So definitely pick something. It can be modeling, it can be concepting, it can be design. Look at the best people out there and just take a peek on that art station and just like compare yourself to them and just focalize on that. Focalize on that specific field and make it yours. Instead of like trying to grasp everything. Hoping that the more variety you have, the more chance you have. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. Unfortunately, the industry is very specialized these days. So you better like focus your energies 100% on something and just master it.
Okay. Well, Alessandro, I'm very happy that you joined me. I really enjoyed the talk.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure, Darko. Thank you very much, and hopefully I don't know. I didn't say too many stupid things.
No, you didn't. Don't worry. I really enjoyed this interview because we touched many subjects from the past to the future and everything about your career. I really enjoyed this 1 hour, and I'm sure I will invite you again.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure too again.
I really like scrolling through your work on my monitor and showing to people.
All right.
So guys, this was episode 32, Alessandro Baldasseroni. And did I pronounce it good?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So this is the episode. Hit the subscribe button if you still haven't. We are starting again DARMAR stream. Hope you're safe at home, and I will see you again. See you around. Bye.
Bye-bye.